Late in the summer, after a long workday, John was driving home on a country road in Maine. The dense, dark forests lining the road seemed endless and eerie. It was late, and the only source of light was the headlights of his old pickup truck. Suddenly, the truck began to sputter and stalled. John tried to start the engine again, but it was no use. Looking at the dashboard, he realized he had run out of gas. Cursing his inattention, he grabbed a gas can from the bed of his truck and started walking along the road in search of a gas station he remembered seeing about a mile back. The night was moonless, and the darkness felt almost tangible. The sounds of the forest heightened his anxiety. John felt like something unseen was watching him from behind the trees. His footsteps echoed in the night, and it seemed as though someone was following him. The woman remained silent. A chill ran down John's spine. He took a step closer, but suddenly she vanished, as if she had dissolved into thin air. John froze, listening intently to the silence. Then he heard footsteps, quick turning around. He saw the same woman, but now she was much closer and staring at him with empty eyes. John turned and ran. He could hear her breathing behind him, the footsteps growing louder. Finally, he saw the lights of a gas station and dashed towards it, panting and drenched in sweat. Once inside, he looked back. The woman was gone. The gas station attendant, noticing his state, asked what had happened. Still catching his breath, John recounted his encounter with the woman on the road. The attendant looked at him with understanding and said, "You're not the first to see her. They say that many years ago, there was an accident here and the woman died. Now her spirit roams these roads seeking help." John turned pale, realizing he had just encountered something supernatural. Filling his gas can, he hurried back to his truck, trying not to look back. That night, he understood that some roads hold dark secrets, and it's best not to linger on them after dark. In a small town in Massachusetts, USA, stood an old Victorian mansion that locals called the Haunted House. The house had been abandoned for a long time, and most people avoided it. Rumor had it that in the 1920s, a family lived in this house, a husband, wife, and their daughter, and all of them mysteriously disappeared one night. People said their spirits still roamed the house, unable to find peace. In one of the nearby towns lived a young journalist named Alex, who was eager to make a name for himself. Hearing about the abandoned house, Alex decided this was his chance to write a sensational article. He gathered the necessary equipment: a camera, a recorder, and a flashlight, and set off to the house late in the evening. As Alex approached the house, he felt a cold wind pierce his bones. The air was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the creaking of old boards and the rustling of leaves. The door to the house was ajar, as if inviting him in. Alex entered and immediately felt the air grow thick and heavy. He examined the first room, taking pictures and recording his impressions on the recorder. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to an old mirrored wardrobe in the corner of the room. Alex moved closer and saw not only his own reflection, but also the vague figure of a woman behind him. He turned around, but there was no one there. Trying not to panic, Alex continued his exploration. He climbed to the second floor and found a bedroom where, according to rumors, ghosts most often appeared. He began asking questions, hoping to record something on the tape, but there was only silence in response. Suddenly, the flashlight began to dim, and Alex heard a quiet, drawn-out whisper coming from the depths of the house. The sounds grew louder and clearer, as if someone was walking on creaky floorboards. Alex felt an icy chill envelop him and realized he was not alone in the house. His recorder picked up strange sounds: whispers, footsteps, and something that sounded like quiet crying. Alex tried to leave the room, but the door slammed shut in front of him with a deafening crash. He felt cold hands touch his shoulder and turned to see the face of a female ghost with empty eyes and pale skin. Alex froze, unable to move. The ghost whispered, "They won't let you leave." At that moment, the flashlight went out completely, and the room was plunged into total darkness. Alex felt the icy cold envelop him and realized that escaping from this house would be much harder than he thought. This happened in the fall of 2005 in a small town in the northwestern United States. The Quiet Corner Motel stood on a deserted highway surrounded by dense forest. It was popular with truck drivers and tourists, but had one strange feature: over the past 10 years, several people had disappeared without a trace. No one could explain where they had gone, but rumors spoke of some evil spirit living in the motel. Jack, a young man from Seattle, went on a business trip and decided to stay at this motel for one night. He had heard about the quiet corner many times but always thought those stories were just urban legends. Jack was tired after a long day of driving and needed rest. When he arrived, it was already late. The motel manager, an elderly man with a piercing gaze, quickly checked him in and handed him the key to his room. The hallway smelled of damp and age, and the lamps flickered as if they lacked power. Jack's room was small and simple, with a bed, a nightstand, and an old TV. Jack quickly took a shower and went to bed. But as soon as he closed his eyes, he felt a strange unease. The room was too quiet, and the silence was pressing on him. He got up and decided to look around. In the corner of the room, he noticed something strange: an old mirror with cracked glass. He approached it and saw that instead of his room, he saw another, much more well-maintained and new room in the reflection. He reached out to the mirror, and his hand passed through it as if through water. Frightened, Jack jerked his hand back, but immediately felt someone grab him from the other side and pull him in. He tried to resist, but his strength was leaving him. The last thing he heard before he was pulled into the mirror was a whisper welcome, the last guest. The next morning, the motel manager, as usual, was making his rounds. He opened Jack's room and saw that it was empty. All the belongings were in place, but Jack himself was nowhere to be found. The elderly man just smirked and whispered, "Another guest for our mirror." Soon the quiet corner was filled with guests again, and none of them suspected that an old mirror hiding in the motel took people to another world. The motel continued to operate, and its owner knew that his business would prosper as long as there were those who sought rest on the road and were not afraid of rumors. In the small American town of Riverwood, life followed its usual course. Everyone knew each other, and the news about the arrival of a new neighbor quickly spread. Mr. Edwards had moved into an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town. He was a reclusive man who rarely left his home and always looked somewhat unnatural. His gloomy appearance and cold gaze instilled a vague sense of unease in the residents. One evening, Jennifer, a young woman living next door, was returning home late. She heard someone quietly calling her name. Turning around, she saw Mr. Edwards standing on the porch of his house. He invited her in, saying he had something important for her. Jennifer declined, citing tiredness, and quickly left. The next day, Jennifer didn't leave her house. Her mother, worried, went into her room and found her missing. The only clue was a dinner invitation card signed by Mr. Edwards, found on her desk. The police began an investigation, but there was little evidence. Neighbors started suspecting Mr. Edwards, and a group of several men decided to check his house. They knocked on the door, but no one answered. They then broke the lock and entered. The house was enveloped in dim light, and a smell of dampness and decay hung in the air. Descending into the basement, the men discovered numerous ancient books and strange artifacts. In the center of the room, mysterious symbols were drawn on the floor, and photographs of the town's residents, including Jennifer, hung on the walls. Suddenly, one of the men heard a faint moan. They approached an old wardrobe and, upon opening it, found Jennifer tied up and barely alive. At that moment, Mr. Edwards appeared. His eyes burned with madness, and he began chanting strange incantations. The men rushed at him and restrained him, then called the police. Jennifer was rescued, but her stories about what had happened in the basement horrified everyone. Mr. Edwards was arrested, and his house was burned to the ground. But the residents of Riverwood couldn't forget those terrifying nights when true evil had come to their town. The grim silhouette of Mr. Edwards and the eerie noises from his house remained forever etched in their memories, a reminder that sometimes evil can hide behind the most ordinary door.